But how do you like ruin someone's life? How does Majority Report do 5 videos on me saying I don't like calling women birthing people? And that's worthy of full cancellation. You are irredeemable. You are a TERF. You are a transphobe. You are garbage, right? How does that happen? But suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where the very same people are defending a guy who got a freaking Nazi tattoo, and he claimed he didn't know it was a Nazi symbol when he got it. Okay, maybe I will give him that. I find it dubious, but okay, even if I took that for face value, he was drunk, he was in the Marines, he didn't know it was a Nazi symbol, he got it. Then he keeps it on his body and doesn't cover it up.
But who finished me off? The left did, progressives did, right? And so they were like, oh, you said naughty things 28 years ago. You're a terrible, cancel him, cancel. But guys, I'm trying to create something that could get AOC elected and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley. And when they did, Anna, did I get bitter? No, what did I do? I said, support the candidates anyway. As you know more better than anyone, not the fault of the voters, that there's a couple of people who love to cancel people on our side. They love it, and it's usually for deeply selfish reasons. So you're right to point out the hypocrisy. Oh, I like Platner and I like this, that, and the other thing. They could have the worst things ever, like things that are halfway okay
they
with
have a literal Nazi tattoo.
Yeah, they can have all of that and they won't cancel them. Oh, but one of my competitors, ooh, they said something 1% off. Cancel them, cancel them. So guys, forget Majority Report, who cares? They're a bunch of nobodies. They go, oh, cry a tear about it, right? Oh, we're gonna target you guys. We're gonna try to smear you. I've seen all of it, guys. I've been through all of it from the left, the right, the middle. That's not the point. The point is, do not let them keep canceling us. I don't mean us as in the young Turks, I mean all of us. The populists, the outsiders, the change agents, the progressives. And when someone on the left is canceling someone else on the left, be super wary, because they're probably doing it for deeply selfish reasons.
Cenk, I can't defend the tattoo thing. He did.
All right, let's show him the tattoo.
All right, so let me give you all the details on it. I just can't, and I won't.
Boy. So I gotta tell you guys, we got a juicy story to talk about here involving the alleged Nazi communist candidate for Senate in Maine, okay, who's running in the Democrat primary against sitting Democrat Governor Janet Mills. And he is currently landsliding her in the primary polls, okay? And this really signals that the Democrat Party is on life support, that they are being taken over, not just by socialists, but by flat out communists, okay? And this is something I've been warning about, especially since the rise of Zoran Mandami out in New York City. And just when you thought that the Democrats, that the leftists couldn't get more radical, they're getting a lot more radical, okay? The Democrat base, apparently, I mean, they're full-blown socialists, they're full-blown communists, because it looks like they're primed to start defeating Democrats left and right in these primaries, okay? And that is terrible for this country, okay? But it might be good for Republicans because, yeah, I mean, when you talk about Republicans going against full-blown communists in general election races, you would hope and pray that the American people would vote against people who are self-proclaimed communists, who are self-proclaimed Antifa super soldiers, okay? And I just want you guys to understand that when these clowns come out here and they talk about how they're democratic socialists, they're not actually really socialists or communists, that they're lying to you, because, again, they're supporting communists. And not only are they supporting a communist, right, a self-proclaimed communist, they're also supporting a guy that is getting a whole lot of backlash because of the fact that he had a Nazi tattoo on his chest, right? A Nazi tattoo. Okay, now again, these far leftists claim that they're against Nazis and fascists, but for whatever reason, they have mental jujitsu their way into justifying supporting this guy, despite the fact that he is a communist, okay, which they claim they're not communists, and also he had a Nazi tattoo that he should have known was a Nazi tattoo before he got busted with the Nazi tattoo. Take a look.
Some of your political opponents are telling reporters that that tattoo has a Nazi affiliation, and I would like to know, is that accurate? Are you a secret Nazi?
I am not a secret Nazi. Actually, if you read through my Reddit comments, I think you can pretty much figure out where I stand on Nazism,
right,
and anti-Semitism and racism in general. I would say a lifelong opponent.
Yeah, so let me just point out, if you ask the people who are saying this is a deal breaker and they could never support Graham, if you ask them, okay, so do you think he's a Nazi? Even those people will usually say, no, of course not. And the reason the answer is no is because if you look at all of the old Reddit posts that they dug up, if anything, the criticism is, bro, you've, at least in your whole posting history, you've always been very far left. You called yourself a fucking communist at one point, right? And so there isn't a single hint, there's not a whiff of any actual Nazi shit in his comment posting history. When he thought nobody was watching and nobody would see these things, it was always, if anything, super far left. So that's why this attack feels very gross. Is like, you're saying he's a Nazi without saying he's a Nazi while knowing he's not a Nazi, right? And so there's something very icky about that. Because like, even the people bringing it up are going, well, of course he's not a Nazi, but this tattoo was a Nazi tattoo. And it's like, I genuinely believe him that he had no idea when he got it. Right now, I just see leftists trying to shit on Graham Platner, and they're doing the right's dirty work for them. And I'm sorry, it doesn't make you holier than thou that you fell for a fucking AIPAC Palantir smear campaign. Because he's not a Nazi. Everybody knows he's not a Nazi. Even the people who are angry about the tattoo admit he's not a Nazi. So like, what are we doing here?
Now, here's where the story gets juicy, right? Is that this guy, again, is getting a whole lot of backlash for having that Nazi tattoo. He's also getting a whole lot of backlash for comments that were discovered on Reddit posts that you could characterize, if you are a leftist, that is, as racist, homophobic, sexist, right? Like, for example, he talked about how black people don't tip, okay? He also made a bunch of anti-gay comments and anti-gay slurs. He also essentially victim blamed women for sexual assault. These are all things that leftists would be losing their minds over if a right-winger said it, okay? And to be honest with you, there are left-wingers who are losing their minds over this, okay? And I want to talk about that because one of the leaders of the progressive movement, Bernie Sanders, was confronted about all of these comments, and he essentially refused to unendorse this guy, despite the fact that, again, he said these things that normally, again, leftists would be losing their minds over if a right-winger said it, or, you know, had a Nazi tattoo.
Your candidate in Maine running for Senate, Graham Platner, has been subject of a lot of fire and fury, stories of old posts, crude comments about black diners, about rural white people. You said yesterday you are still supporting him. Why?
I'm not overly impressed by a squad of media running around saying, what do you think about the tattoo on Graham Platner's chest? Between you and me, there might be one or two more important issues, but let me go there. I'm not Graham's best friend. I met him several times. We did a rally in Portland, Maine, a great rally. I am impressed by the guy. This is a guy who will tell you who has served 4 tours of duty with the United States military. He was in the middle of some heavy duty combat. He was a machine gunner. That's what you do. You mow down people, you know? He went through some very difficult experiences in the military as a machine gunner, seeing his friends killed. Came out of the military. He will acknowledge, I'm not telling you what he doesn't say, he had PTSD. He went to the VA, and by the way, what he says, they rebuilt his life, all right? He went into a dark period in his life. I suspect that Graham Platner is not the only American to have gone through a dark period. But what he did was he has expressed his darkness on the internet. Probably not a brilliant thing to do, all right? And he said things that are stupid, things that were hurtful. He has apologized for them. And what he says now, and the guy that I saw up on the stage in Portland, Maine, rather a brilliant guy. I mean, really a strong fighter for the working class, very articulate, very smart. And what he said is, yeah, I went through a dark period. I said stupid things. I am not the person today that I was back then. And I think as a nation, especially given the fact that we have a president who is convicted of 34 felonies, maybe we have to do a little bit of forgiveness.
Why am I laughing so hard? Well, the reason why, because I find it to be hilarious how these leftists, who again, all they do is boohoo, whine, and cry about Nazi, right? All they do is boohoo, whine, and cry about racism, sexism, homophobia, bigotry, right? When it's one of their guys that gets caught, now all of a sudden they want forgiveness, right? Well, see, you got to forgive him, right? Who cares if he says what we believe are racist things? Who cares if he says things that we believe are homophobic? Who cares if he says things that we believe are sexist? Who cares if he has a Nazi tattoo, right? All of a sudden now, They're saying that we should forgive him, right? That, hey, people say stupid things, okay? And, he wasn't running for, Senate or whatever. He didn't know he was going to be a politician. We should forgive him. We should cut up some slack. Now, again, the reason why this is hilarious is because they would never, ever, 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 ever say that in response to a right-winger. They would never do it. They would try to cancel that person. That person is donezo, right? Done. Career over. Livelihood ruined. Can't feed their family, can't feed their kids. Who cares, right? Who cares? They said bad things a long time ago. They must be canceled. But again, when it's one of their guys, right? Oh, well, see, forgiveness, right? Jesus, right? That is what leftists are doing. And what makes this even more hilarious is the fact that particularly you have white progressives, white leftists who are defending this guy. Now, the other leftists, right, the other liberals who are not white, they're not trying to forgive this guy. And the reason why is because they are racialist, okay, when it comes to what they believe in, right? They're more racialist than they are more economic when it comes to their Marxism, right? You have the cultural Marxists, and then you have the people who are just, regular Marxists, right? And the cultural Marxists are saying, you know what? Nah, we cannot forgive this guy because, again, he said sexist, racist, bigoted things, and he's also white. Therefore, we're not going to forgive him, and we don't support him, and we don't like the fact that white progressives are trying to force us to support a guy that we feel is a bigot. And that has led to a full-blown woke civil war breaking out on the left between white progressives and non-white progressives. Take a look.
And the problem is, some of y'all forgot Bernie Sanders was just an old white politician. Because what do you mean? He came out in an Axios interview and said he wasn't overly impressed with the information that came out about Graham Platner. Graham Platner went through some dark times. He went through a lot of stuff. He was a mercenary. And I guess going through dark stuff excuses a Nazi tattoo? You went through shit so dark, you decided to identify with a Nazi tattoo? What?
Bernie Sanders is an old white man, so of course he will sit down and do an interview and defend Graham Platner. Graham Platner, who is running as a candidate for the U.S. Senate race against Susan Collins and hopes to be the Democratic nominee. Graham Platner, who didn't realize that he had a Nazi tattoo, and I already know what people are gonna do. They're gonna say, oh, Dems always want everyone to be perfect. Dems always want people to be good. I'm okay with them not being perfect. I just don't want them to be a Nazi. Is that okay? Is that fine? Crazy hating establishment Democrats or anybody old so much that you would go full-throated support for somebody who has a Nazi tattoo. Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't realize it was a Nazi tattoo when he got it. Right. It was a misunderstanding. That's what they're saying. Or if you're a Bernie supporter, you're saying that this is all done up by the DNC. Trump is a Nazi, but Graham Platner can definitely have a Nazi tattoo because the alternative is worse.
It's actually kind of hilarious that some white people earnestly believe you could accidentally have a Nazi tattoo on your chest. Like, why does no one ever accidentally have, like, a Japanese nationalist tattoo? Why is it always Germany? Isn't that curious? Because even if it was an accident, right? Say I got Chinese letters tattooed on my stomach in Mandarin. Wouldn't I at some point be curious to know what those letters mean? I'm not gonna ask a friend that speaks Mandarin, like, hey, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, your tattoo says, Nein, von Krisenheimen. And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty bad. Let me get this covered up.
Y'all hoes about to be mad at me, but I don't give a fuck, and I'm gonna make this real quick and simple, bitch. I'm not in motherfucking Maine, so I ain't got a dog in the motherfucking fight, and I see you and we see each other, okay? But what I have an issue with Graham Platner is not just the Nazi tattoo, and not the fact that he just got it covered up just yesterday, not the mere fact that even his campaign staffer came to him and told him what that tattoo meant, and the fact that he even had weeks before it even hit the news cycle to rectify the issue and rectify the situation, but he chose to continue. My issue isn't just the mere fact that he believes that black people tip low. My issue is the mere fact that we have people within our party making excuses for bigotry. Why is it that the progressive wing of our party always wants to platform the most toxic and prejudice on the backs of the most marginalized? Why is it that y'all always want us to deal with it just for the sake of it? See, my ass might bottom every now and again, but I ain't taking it. It's giving Fetterman all over again. I remember back In 2022, during the primaries, black people told you about John Fetterman, how he chased an unarmed black man down with a fucking shotgun. But you didn't listen to us now. But how is it going with John Fetterman? Where the fuck is he at? Is he progressive, as y'all painted him out to be? Is he like Bernie? Bitch, bye, and get the fuck out of my face.
Your bitch ass said, I walked, and this is what I mean by playing with my intelligence. If you're gonna be bold enough to be racist and bigoted, be bold enough to stand in it. That's it. And don't treat me like a child. I don't even think we should be treating children like this, but especially don't treat me like a child as a grown-ass woman and try to make me believe that. I'm not falling for it. Absolutely not. You can go to hell. A white supremacist who can't even stand on, yeah, I thought it was cool when I was younger. Like, I think people deserve better than that. Full stop. Now that you are in hot water about it, oh, I didn't know what it meant, yada.
Sorry, Graham Platner. As a rule, I don't support people with Nazi tattoos on their chest.
After your video played, then Secular Talk came on and I listened as well. Secular Talk is a YouTube channel here. I watch their videos from time to time. He is a white leftist, okay? If you listen to his video, this is understandable. I personally don't think the guy is racist at all. I would also pick him over Janet Mills because she is an establishment candidate that will go with Chuck Schumer. Racism, homophobia is not a deal breaker for them. Here's another comment, and I'm going to have to summarize this because the grammar is awful. It's awful. So this
I have been pissing off white people left and right because I oppose Graham Platner as a senatorial candidate. I'm not saying that I don't welcome forgiving him, but it seems to me a particularly ego-filled journey to redemption to still run for Senate when you have a checkered past, when you have a Nazi tattoo, when you have problematic Reddit comments, when you have worked for Blackwater. There is a perfectly decent candidate in Maine known as Jordan Wood. The dude has worked for Katie Porter. He's actually has an education, unlike Graham Platner. And white people don't want to hear this. White people do not want to hear this. On Threads, there was some completely cocky photographer who put up a post saying, yeah, I met Graham. He's actually a really good guy. And I replied and I said, oh, trust you, bro? Is that why I should absolutely betray my own ethical principles, or any of us for that matter? And this guy challenged me to a fucking fist fight. You fucking white people are so fucking fragile. Graham Platner, get the fuck out of the race, do the right thing. Why do you insist on staying in it? It's not even about the Nazi tattoo. And there are reports indicating that this guy knew exactly what the tattoo meant 10 years ago. I don't trust this motherfucker. It seems to be a big fucking ego trip. Fuck Graham Platner. The Democrats, all of you, especially you fucking white males, you gotta fucking stop with this shit. You know? We're no longer living in a time in which the Dude Bro Club applies.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Now, again, this is so funny to me because it just shows you how fragile the left really is, right? Their little communist Marxist coalition. What the normal Marxists don't understand is that the cultural Marxists don't really have that much in common, right? Like, you're not going to be able to say, hey, we're going to give you free healthcare, a $50 minimum wage, free college. We're going to give you free stuff, but you got to deal with bigotry and hate, right? You got to deal with a guy with Nazi tattoos. That ain't going to work, right? I'm sorry. Because again, when you get in bed with racialists, okay, cultural Marxists, they care more about the race stuff than they care about the economic stuff, right? And that's what these white progressives are finding out the hard way, which is that, yeah, the people that you're in bed with, right, your little coalition, right, of woke revolutionaries, you guys don't all believe the same stuff. You don't all have the same priorities, okay? And that the racialists are 100% pro-cancel culture. And don't get me wrong, the white Marxists, right, the white progressives, okay, they're also pro-cancel culture too, just not when it comes to one of their own, right? And that's the funny part about it, because these racialists, right, they don't give a damn about, again, this dude being a communist, right? They don't give a damn about any of that stuff. This dude said mean things about black people, right? He said things that can be characterized as homophobic. He said things that can be characterized as sexist. He had a Nazi tattoo. And one thing I can say about a racialist is that, hey, at the very least, they're being consistent, because they certainly would want to cancel somebody on the right for that, right? And lo and behold, you have this white communist, right, who they're saying, nope, can't support the guy, right? He should be canceled because of his comments and the Nazi tattoo, right? We can't support that. Sorry, we can't get behind it. Hey, at the end of the day, they are being consistent, right, when it comes to that, okay? They may not be consistent in other areas, but when it comes to that, they are being consistent. So, again, I'm not surprised, right? I guess the good thing for the white Marxists is that, well, Maine is not a state with a lot of black folks, right? With so-called people of color. So it honestly probably won't matter in Maine, right? It won't matter that much. But this guy could never really run for president or anything like that. Like, that would never happen because of the fact that they're just people who are never going to forgive this guy, right? They're never going to give him the benefit of the doubt. They're just not going to do it because, again, he's white. He said things that they find to be hateful and bigoted. And it doesn't matter how much he apologizes for it or the excuses that he makes. They're just never going to get on board with it, right? And that is a huge problem for these leftists. You guys remember the whole Bernie Bros smear, okay, from 2016 and 2020, right? The Democrat primary, where you had all of these feminist types that were supporting Hillary, and the establishment Democrats, they came out and said that people supporting Bernie, they're sexist, right? They're bigots, okay? They're racist, okay? And Bernie, because of that, he struggled versus the establishment candidate when it came to black votes, when it came to women supporters, because of those smears. Now, again, normally they're all kind of on the same team. But again, when you got some of these people out here, right, who, again, put their identity first, their identity matters more than all the other stuff that progressives care about, yeah, you're going to have this problem, right? Especially when you're running a white progressive candidate, right? There's always going to be the issue of the fact that you have racialists that just don't like white people in general. And especially if you are white and you are male and you have a Nazi tattoo and you have a history of making the type of comments that this guy has made, yeah, they're never going to get on board with that. They're never, ever, 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 ever going to get on board with that, because for them, identity comes first. They would much rather have a woman, a so-called person of color. The last thing that they want is a white male, right? And so, again, that is an issue that progressives are going to face, that the leftists are going to face, because, again, the normal Marxists and the cultural Marxists, they have different priorities, right? And I think stories like this highlight exactly what I'm talking about. The cultural Marxists don't care as much about the economic stuff. All they care about is trying to defeat the white man, right? That is what they primarily care about. And the regular Marxists, yeah, they care more about, implementing communism, right? And all the economic stuff. And, the race stuff, they kind of care about it, but they only care about it as much as they need it to defeat the right, right? They do it in order to keep the cultural Marxists on their team. And that in and of itself creates friction because, again, the priorities are not the same. They don't really value the same stuff, okay? So, again, that's why you're seeing this conflict play out. And you're going to see a lot more infighting from the left over whether or not they should support this guy, especially if Janet Mills ends up coming back, right? If this guy ends up losing steam, then, again, this is going to be a big deal, right? It's going to be a big, big, big issue because a lot of people on the left are just going to refuse to get on board with this guy because of the comments that he made, because at the end of the day, they do truly believe in cancel culture. And if you are a white male, it doesn't matter if you are progressive, you are a white male, they're not giving you the benefit of the doubt, right? They're not going to excuse it. That is part of the reason why I think that The View, even the cackling hands on The View, again, a panel full of women, they came out and said that the dude should drop out. I think the reason why is because, again, those are the type of people that, are just never going to give a white male the benefit of the doubt when it comes to stuff like this, right? They're just not going to do it. And that's just the reality of the left, right? The woke revolutionary coalition that, obviously is fragile. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.